What's up, guys? Let's take a look at another CodeWars exercise. This one's called Simple Pig Latin. Pig Latin is this idea, I think about 100 years old, where you take the beginning of a word, move it to the end with an A sound, so igpe, atin lay, or you've probably heard cartoon characters say ixnay on the something say, which has a few details to it, like what if it starts with a vowel, or what if we have to change the capitalization. But this exercise says keep it simple, just move the thing, don't worry too much about it, and that's going to make it fairly quick. Let's take a look. I know you're never going to do this in real life, you're never going to have to make a Pig Latin function, but you will, all the time, have to split something up, do a little process on each part, and then put them back together. That is one of the most common things in programming overall. So let's take a look. My approach, my general tendency for something like this is to do the big picture, to say, okay, what's our process, and then zoom into the details. So I'm going to say, like, okay, I know we're going to split. Text.split will pick a character and split on that, for example, commas. But in this case, if we use nothing as a default, it splits on spaces, which is what we want. And then we're going to do something to every chunk. I'm going to say Latin. Let's just make a function name. Latin word for word in text.split. So we're going to take each word in that result and then put it through a little function, and then join them back up. Okay? I know I kind of wrote this backwards, right to left, because that's how I decided to speak English in describing it. But if you get used to this kind of thing, if you're doing a lot of similar problems, you'll write, okay, I'm going to join, I'm going to do something. And the reason people like this kind of comprehension expression is because it does put the thing that's happening first. Like, what are we doing? We're Latinizing the word, and then split, that's just a detail about how we got the raw material. And then finally we're going to return that. Okay? Now obviously we can't run this to test anything because there is no Latin. So let's say Latin word, and we'll just say ASDF, just so we can make sure it's running, it's putting them together, it's giving us no errors. So if I test, it says, hey, that is almost what we want, but I want a space, right? I've been doing some problems where you join things with nothing in between, but now I want a space in between because these are still words and they're still going to be in a sentence like English words, even though they're Pig Latin. So there we go. That looks like about what we want. I know it's wrong, I know it's all red, but it's giving us words, and it's the right amount of words, and it's putting together with a space, and they look like a kind of thing we're going to end up with. So how do we actually Latinize the word? Well, we could say, give me the index. Give me like word 0 for the first letter, but actually that goes later, so I'm going to go word 1 colon means 1 onward, plus word 0 plus A. So that's like if I'm going to do igpe for pig, I go, okay, 1 to the end, meaning the second thing onward, and then the first thing, and then A. So that probably does work. In fact, let's try that. Hey, that passes those tests. I'm a little suspicious. I don't think we really did the job, but let's hit attempt for the big tests, and we see, okay, we almost got it. What's our issue? Let's scroll down to those failing ones, and I'm seeing this is actual Latin, not from the pigs, and it says, hey, I did this, what I'm highlighting. I put an A on a question mark. So we got to make sure we don't do that. I have the wrong name here, kind of, right? Like when I called this word, and when I called this word, I misled myself into thinking it was always a word, but it's not. It's a punctuation. And they're trying to make it easy on us by putting that space in between, so we don't have to see custodes and then change that while keeping the question and moving it, blah, blah, blah. We can actually treat it as its own thing with a space on there. I don't know if they did that in real Latin. Probably not. And all I have to do is say, okay, if the thing is a word, is a letter word, then I do this. Otherwise, I'm just going to give it back the same thing. So if they give me a question or a period or an exclamation, I just give them back the same thing, unchanged. So the question is now, should we do that in here? Should we say like, hey, this function can take anything and it'll handle it? Or should we catch it early and say, hey, I'm not even going to send you to the Latin function because you're not going to do anything, right? And either one would work. I think in general, I like to have the functions be robust enough to handle different inputs. Like, hey, you give me an empty string, I'm okay with it. Right now it's not, by the way, but it would be nice that the function could handle an empty string. Or you give me some punctuation, I can handle it. Right now it's not because it's putting the AY on there. But I would generally like my functions to be strong enough to handle different inputs, not really fragile where they'll just have to be protected. So I'm going to put my test in here. I'm going to say, okay, if word dot is alpha, that's a string method that does what it sounds like. It'll give you true if it's alphabetical characters, else word. So if it's not alphabetical, meaning it's a question mark or something, we just return the word, which is unchanged. Now, I think that would pass the tests, but I'm still not thrilled with that because the name word is a little bit misleading now. It's not really a word, right? Seeing word might mislead you. It might be okay because if you break up the phrase into chunks, well, okay, word is a good vaguely general name for that, but it's not doing the thing. And by the way, anytime we have these, I'd prefer F strings. So we could do like, okay, F string, and then anytime we're like adding strings together, you could just do that, and it's shorter, but that's not a big deal. It's together is what I like about it. You don't have to say like this, and then your mind has to keep track of where the pluses end. In this case, it's all connected, it's all wrapped up in one set of quotes, and it's easier to see what's what. Another thing is we could say :1, meaning like, okay, we go up to the 1, which would help us in not having an error with an empty string. I don't think that's any better because we would accidentally put AY on there. And you know what? Is alpha is false on an empty string, so we wouldn't have to worry about this anyway. So I could change the name. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. Right here, I'm going to use map. Okay, instead of saying do it with intermediate name, you could say map this function onto this thing. And one of the benefits of map is you don't have to come up with a name. Okay, you don't have to name the part where people are like, you know, something X for X in list. You don't have to do that X because map says, hey, I'm going to apply this to this, and you don't have to worry about making a name. So that takes care of our issue there. We don't say word. And in this one, not sure. I don't love it, but let's go ahead and move on. We will pass the tests if I didn't have a network error. Luckily, I opened the solutions earlier, so even if I'm not connected, I can still show you now. So here's somebody who did split, and they did almost exactly the same thing that we did. Great. We've got another one who used alnum instead of alpha, which includes what they call alphanumeric characters, any letters or numbers. I'm not sure if that would make a difference, but I guess it is a tiny bit less typing to do no. It's the same amount of typing to do alpha or alnum. By the way, they had the thing of calling it x, which is so bland. It's like, what does that mean? When I see the x over here, I might think it's a number because that's used in algebra. So that is one benefit of map, is it doesn't make you name things. Here's one that does it in a slightly longer way, but not really. It's doing exactly the same thing. You split it, check. If so, we add the Latinized word, otherwise we add the thing. Only thing I don't like about this is the name. When they say for I, we imagine a range and get some numbers, but this is actually a word, so I is kind of misleading. And I wouldn't get this at my first glance. I would go, wait, what, I? Are they doing numbers? Are they counting? And in fact, no, it's stuff like pig and Latin and a bunch of characters. Here's a few who used regular expression, RE, which is a way to match text. And so you're saying like, hey, if there's like a first letter and then any amount of other letters, then 2 and 1 are like, indices kind of, and then we arrange them like this. Rather than indices, it's more like the names of these chunks that have been matched. And then that works too. It's a little bit harder to read sometimes, but it absolutely does the job. And they put regular expressions as one of their tags on this problem, so they wanted us to practice. Anyway, people are about to come into the classroom in the morning, so I'm stopping this recording right here.